Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode 5 of the Bridge Everything podcast. In this episode, I want to discuss Bitcoin. The reason for doing this at this particular time is because I have a feeling that Bitcoin is about to go on a pretty seismic price increase. And in this cycle, I feel like a lot of people that come from similar communities like myself um, and people that have just been financially exploited or oppressed are going to psychologically price themselves out of the Bitcoin network. They're going to see the price, maybe even the price that it's at now, 69, 70,000. They feel like it's too expensive because they can't afford a full one. And so why not? It's for quote unquote rich people. I want to do this episode to really debunk that. Again, especially just feeling that the price is going to be significantly higher by the end of this year. And basically to encourage everybody, no matter what price it's at, is not only important, but it's, in my opinion, essential that you, um, even if you don't try to purchase any or own any, you should definitely try to understand it. Put in a lot of time and effort to understand why this thing is so valuable, why everybody, the quote unquote rich people, are racing towards accumulating as much as possible. Um, I guess the first thing is maybe most people know now, but just explaining what Bitcoin is. Essentially, Bitcoin is just a decentralized software network um, for simplicity. Uh, Nobody owns it, nobody controls it. It's a scarce resource, scarce asset. There will only ever be 21 million produced, and many of those, a few million at least, are already lost, just out of the cycle, out of the network because of somebody dying or not having access to getting back in their wallet. They've been locked out. And so it's really less than 21 million that will ever be in circulation, which makes it even more scarce. Um, and in trying to understand Bitcoin, and I would say kind of the angle I want to discuss this because I feel like there's a lot of really good content on Bitcoin that you should definitely listen to, cross reference, find the people that love it and hate it. But one angle that I feel like isn't explored enough is that Bitcoin isn't about price. It's discussed in price. Um, that's where all the YouTube channels and news outlets they want to talk about. They want your price targets, even by a specific date. Where do you see it going? Like that's the sexy talk around Bitcoin, and in that it alienates people that again are going to feel left out. Bitcoin isn't about price though. For the most part, it's just about understanding that it is money that can't be manipulated. Our monetary system that we all participate in currently is backed by nothing. It used to be backed by gold. Once we took it from being pegged to gold, it really just gave governments the ability to debase our currencies, to print as much as possible. And in them having that power, that's obviously what they're going to do. That debasing of currency is essentially theft. It is stealing from us. It is reallocating our resources, our time, our energy, our productivity that we put to accumulate this asset. It's also penalizing anyone who is saving currency because your money can now stretch further, or excuse me, your money can no longer stretch as far as it did prior to them establishing the new money in circulation. Um, and so, yeah, just understanding that Bitcoin is the price is a measurement, but that's not the significance or the importance of Bitcoin. The importance of Bitcoin is that it is money that cannot be manipulated, cannot, well, it can be manipulated and but it can't be corrupted. They can't make more. They can't change the rules. It's fair. It's true. It's essentially automating truth on a digital ledger for everyone to be able to look at. Um, we all participate in the network on any level we choose to, whether we want to be miners or transact in it or store use it as a store of value. However, you want to participate and engage with the network. Nobody can kick you off. Nobody can confiscate your Bitcoin for your political views or anything. And you even see that with the fiat monetary system. Money is weaponized. I say often that money uh, is the most deadly weapon, the most deadly tool on the planet. And when governments weaponize the monetary system against other countries for political reasons or whatever the case is, there's a millions of innocent citizens that are impacted and exploited through that action. And so Bitcoin is an opportunity really just to offer fairness and truth to every individual. Um, Also, just talking about what money is, for me, the way I look at money, my money is a measurement of our accumulated time, energy, and productivity. And so I feel like just understanding that, like, I feel like money is often overvalued by people as what's going to solve all of their problems. And then in that process, once they get the money, they think it's going to solve all of their problems. It really just exposes their character flaws, whether it becomes intoxicating themselves or egotistical, whatever it is, it really just makes their problems worse. Or it's undervalued, and it's undervalued by people that can't get ahead financially. And they will then consider it to be evil, the root of all evil, or something that will compromise their soul if they obtain it. But no, both of those are uh, harmful relationships to money. Money for me, and I feel like a lot of people would benefit and have a healthier relationship with it if they just understood that it's simply just the accumulation of your time, the accumulation of your energy, the accumulation of your productivity. It's a measurement of how productive you are, and uh, that's important to have it's humbling. um, and the more you have, the more free time you have, and ultimately it can give you freedom. Financial freedom is freedom, the freedom to not have to accept jobs or roles that you're not comfortable with. It can protect you from not chasing algorithms, not chasing uh, the attention economy that everyone is kind of participating in today. And yeah, I think being able to accumulate um, real money, money that is not going to be debased at the expense of uh, money that's not going to be debased at your expense is extremely important. And we don't have that opportunity to have a currency that we can do that in today with the US dollar. Yeah, inflation is less here than other countries, um, but the dollar has a lot of, in my idea, in my opinion, rather, a lot of it's. I see a lot of people I respect, um, like the dollar will be perfectly fine in the future. I don't see that. I feel like it's on a decline, and uh, that there's some dark times ahead financially with the dollar. Um, but just talking about getting back to Bitcoin, um, I want to talk about some things that it does, some problems that it solves, and why I feel like all people should be, whether financially or mentally, emotionally invested in it in some capacity. Again, it just deserves your attention at the very least. Um, One of the things that it solves is um, it provides exploited and oppressed people to get ahead by saving, and it rewards them for being disciplined. So currently, if you are really the only savers in, for example, the savers in America are people that um, you could consider to be oppressed. I think the quote unquote smart money is not saving because they understand currency debasement is a real thing, and that by saving, you are essentially just losing your purchasing power. And so people that save are easily exploited and oppressed. And that's unfair, in my opinion. Before we took our money off of the gold standard, saving was what everybody did. Saving was what allowed us to innovate, um, have, yeah, just a security blanket. It allowed us to be able to have confidence in our ability to sustain our family and ourselves. And saving is now essentially through currency debasement and the shortcomings of the monetary system. Savers are really just becoming poorer and poorer over time. Um, but saving is a beautiful act. Again, it's an action of discipline, and you shouldn't be taken advantage of for saving. You should be rewarded for saving, and that's what Bitcoin does. I'm a example of that. Um, through saving, essentially, Bitcoin leads us to a deflationary economy. So technology, one of the promises of technology is it allows us to become more efficient in our production, and that efficiency should lower prices because things are produced more easily. Because of the monetary system, it doesn't allow for that to happen. So it inflates everything. Um, because the only way that the system can sustain itself is from adding debt to the economy, adding debt to everything essentially. And so the opposite of inflationary economy is a deflationary economy. Deflationary economy essentially prices over time drive down. And if you just look at a good website, I can't recommend enough, WTF 1971, basically what the fuck happened in 1971, when we removed our currency from the gold standard. If you just look from that time, but even before that time, in 1954, essentially since what I think 1913, when you see the cost of living, the price of homes, the price of anything, it is like night and day because of the corruption in our money. And again, the opposite of that is Bitcoin kind of the fiat system. It creates this bubble. So everything has to always forever increase in price. The opposite of that on a Bitcoin standard or with a hard money, a hard currency is that it allows prices to fall, which is important because we are getting closer and closer to AI overwhelming the globe. And once AI does overwhelm us, and I don't mean that in a negative way, I'm pro AI. But once AI is here, taking jobs and things become automated, um, you're going to need cost of living to be reduced. You're going to need money to sustain yourself because you don't know if you'll have a job. You don't know, it could be months. Who knows how long you'll need, um, financing for. But yeah, you're gonna need prices to go down, because again, if you're not working, which is what AI ultimately does, it displaces people from their jobs. You're not going to be able to sustain your life. You're not going to be able to sustain rent, buy food, water. All these things are going to be priced through the roof. Um, and so I see Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, AI all working together. I think both things should be seriously explored, if you're not already doing so, of course. Um, and in doing that, in driving prices down, kind of just like the ripple effects of that, I would say another thing Bitcoin does that I look forward to is it restores human dignity. I feel like everybody knows something is wrong today. Most people can't really put their finger on it unless you're studying like what is money, what is Bitcoin, and these things that we're talking about. But when you're being robbed, uh, through the monetary system, it's like psychological theft. Not only does it steal from you physically by reallocating your dollar and reducing your purchasing power, but it forces you to work more hours, have a side job or multiple jobs. It steals your ability to have a social life. Um, it steals your ability to value yourself because you feel like you're doing something wrong or you can't get ahead. Um, and a lot of people ultimately just look towards escapism to not try to, because it's hard. Um, and I think as prices come down and people are able to breathe, uh, they're able to be more present, be intentional, be proactive. Um, and yeah, I just think it restores dignity. I feel like if you have the capacity to take care of yourself and your family, uh, you're naturally going to be more optimistic, hopeful, and have a sense of self worth. Um, and I think a fiat system devours, devours and requires continuous, endless growth at the expense of efficiency, at the trade-off of efficiency. So yeah, I mean, in order to kick the debt down the road forever, you have to grow forever. And that growth, when growth is your goal, you're not concerned with being efficient, because you know you're just going to print your way out of the issue. That ultimately is what accelerates the climate issues, the climate concerns, which is a very nuanced, conversation. So I don't want to get too much into the politics of that, but ultimately, that is what accelerates climate change is the extraction that must take place in a fiat monetary system. You have to pillage and steal and extract. Um, and it's all in the name of growth because if you're not growing, the currency will default, it will collapse. And so the only way to sustain a fiat monetary system is to pillage the earth and exploit and oppress people, um, for the benefit of your country. And that's what we have. Another thing, another promise of Bitcoin is that it incentivizes truth and objectivity, as lying as a business is no longer profitable. So, fiat, as it's cheaply produced, as it is. So, another thing with fiat is it's really just biased money. So, it's political, um, and through that, the people that are able to take advantage of the cheaply printed money. They're able to essentially um, persuade or coerce media, politicians, scientists, whoever that is needing to receive the currency. They're able to coerce or persuade them to adhere to their agenda, adhere to their propaganda. And you see that throughout the news all, every day. Outlets lie, they manipulate, they don't question, they don't do real journalism anymore. And that is because they are being paid off by crooked dollars. And so these propaganda campaigns, they're they're sustainable because if I control the money, I can just continue to pay off whoever I need to pay off by producing new money. With Bitcoin, it really makes that unsustainable for a long period of time because the value of Bitcoin is really just going to keep on going up over time. And even if you own a lot of Bitcoin, the ability or capacity to want to pay for these massive propaganda campaigns is slim to none. Um, because again, the scarceness of it, you understand that it will be hard to reaccumulate the Bitcoin that you're spending on these campaigns. And um, also, it will be hard in a Bitcoin society, theoretically speaking, to monetize uh, lies. Because as people have more time, as people have the ability to um, pay more attention, their ability to listen to or to fall for the lies is going to be a lot less likely. Um, right now, the lies are kind of sellable because, again, a lot of people are working multiple jobs. They just see the headline and they take it as a fact. But again, that's because they're overworked, underpaid in a Bitcoin society when life is cheaper, prices are coming down, and people therefore have the ability to be more intellectually engaged. Those things won't be as passable. So again, it reduces lies and it incentivizes truth and objectivity. You'll no longer be able to corrupt scientists as they've done for decades. And shout out to all the scientists. I read a lot of science stuff. Um, but there is a lot of subjectivity and subjective reporting, again, because the recipients of the corrupt money, the biased money, political money. Person that talks really good on this in a book that I would actually recommend is The Fiat Standard by Saifedean. Also highly recommend the Bitcoin Standard. But the Fiat Standard talks about just the institutional uh, corruption that fiat creates. Um, what else? Another thing is the beauty of Bitcoin is that it allows people of wherever you are, from the most poorest person to wherever, to own property. Before Bitcoin, property that's desirable. So um, even just $1 worth of Bitcoin, yeah, it's not the most, but it gives you the ability to own desirable property by people of all tax brackets, people by globally dispersed throughout the world. Um, if you are in a overexploited country, otherwise referred to as third world countries, um, have a home, your ability or chances of selling that home are hard. You need for somebody to like this specific home in this specific neighborhood, in this specific country, in this specific city, in this specific neighborhood. and see it as worthwhile to purchase it versus so it's extremely subjective. And even just to own a home, if you're in a over exploited country, it's hard to do that. But and it can be confiscated by governments if there's a dictator that comes to power. Like there's real estate is good, but there are the amount of fees you have to put to maintain it, to repair it, to taxes, all these things make it inaccessible for a large part of the population, the majority of the population probably. Um, Bitcoin gives every single person on earth with internet connection, or even not with internet connection, because you can purchase it in without internet, but it gives every single person on earth the ability to own desirable property. And that's such a beautiful thing. Um, and it also removes the centralizing risk of money. So we no longer have to be guinea pigs to the powers that be, the bankers, the central bankers. We can have optionality. And then the final thing is that I want to talk about is just Bitcoin isn't means to liberate people. The stories that I've loved the most that really sold me into okay, I'm going full fledged in Bitcoin are just hearing the beautiful stories of women in Afghanistan or people in Libya or uh, all over the world that have been able to use Bitcoin as a way to free themselves, the refugees, people that have flee their country to through Bitcoin and have found freedom as they were in extremely corrupt regimes or under dictatorship. And Bitcoin has essentially empowered them to find their freedom. Um, so these are kind of the reasons that I feel like everyone should consider, explore, and become more knowledgeable of Bitcoin. Again, my main purpose is I really want people to not focus on price, but understand that the one Bitcoin will always be one Bitcoin and that you're rewarded from being a participant in the network. Life becomes cheaper if you price things in Bitcoins and avoid pricing them in dollars. Pricing things in dollars, prices will always go up. Pricing things in Bitcoin, prices will always go down. Um, and so, yeah, again, these are just things that I would like people, all people to consider, but especially people of my community, people that have come from similar backgrounds, people that might be looking at a $70,000 Bitcoin and say, I'm late to the party. I can't get in. One thing I'll say that someone who's been influential on the way I look at Bitcoin, Michael Saylor, uh, has referred to is it's never too late to buy real estate in New York or Paris or Tokyo. And specifically in New York and Manhattan, that's one reason you don't see for sale signs in Manhattan is those the people that own that real estate, they don't sell, they pass it down generation after generation. And if they need money, they take out a loan against that money. And that's also what Bitcoin, you can do that today. I think it becomes easier in a few years, but there's also something like that, like again, just sticking on the Manhattan property example. If I need money, I don't want to sell my property because the prices in Manhattan are always going to go up for real estate. So I'm going to go to a bank. I'm going to take out, I'm going to use my property as collateral. I'm going to take out a loan and then I'm going to use that loan to generate more money and then I'll pay off my loan. The power of that, the fact that Bitcoin allows people of all backgrounds to obtain that power. And then you're not paying capital gains tax because you're not selling the asset and you can pass it down generation after generation. Um, yeah, these are the reasons that I really got involved and Hopefully, you consider it. I will put some resources in the show notes for anyone who wants to dive deeper. And I hope you are well wherever you are. Have a wonderful day.